And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake, and today we're talking about Need for Speed Unbound again with the Volume 9 update. We wanted to take a look at this game for a few reasons. First of all, the big thing, like I said, it's the new Volume 9 update that brings some new things worth talking about to the table. Also, just as a good kind of 1 year later review, which if you remember, I did not do the Before You Buy video for this game on launch. Falcon actually did. I can't do every single Before You Buy like I used to back in the day, and I need help. And yeah, this one did pain me because I'm usually the Need for Speed guy covering every single one, so I missed out on it. So I'm visiting it 1 year later. Now, let's just jump in and take a quick look. So before we get to the Volume 9 update, just like a brief primer on the game itself, Unbound is a big open world single player campaign Need for Speed racer that also has multiplayer. The campaign is arcadey open world racing with a really good combo of Need for Speed elements, like kind of smartly borrowing hallmarks from different parts of the series and crafting its own thing out of it. You race, you grind, you earn cash to buy new cars and buy cool parts for those cars to make them cooler, just like any good street racer game worth its salt. And of course, when this game initially launched, the big talk was around the style. It's got a little bit of a cel-shaded art style, specifically to the characters like the drivers and also some of the effects. You know, the smoke from your tires, the things to like help with the sense of speed, they all have a little bit of a cartoonish effect. And a lot of people were turned off on it back in the day. You can switch a lot of these options off. It's not really a big deal. If anything, I think they should have went a little bit more into this style, but still, it's something a little bit different to help it stand out. The driving itself, there are a lot of options to tune how it plays, but by default, which I stuck with, and I'm still getting used to, I'm clearly not very good, but it is very, very arcadey and very tap the brake and then pull to a direction to drift hard. I think this is fun. I think this is very arcadey, and I love my hardcore realistic racing sims. I like a Forza Motorsport. I love a Gran Turismo, but sometimes I just want to have fun and drift around. And I think these controls really do it justice. Is it the best drifting controls in the series? I don't know about that. They've tried it in a couple of different ways and messed with it, but bottom line, either way, it is pretty fun. The world they built here too, Lakeshore, is awesome. It's straight up Chicago. Like, it's fictional Chicago, but like when you look at it, I've been to Chicago enough times to go, oh, okay, this is pretty much Chicago in a lot of sense. But it makes for a good racing arena, and there's a lot of variety to it. You have the countryside, you have the city itself, you have the city outskirts, you have all that stuff, and there's a lot to it, and I think it really works. What doesn't really work for me is the characters and the dialogue stuff. Every once in a while, there's a decent joke, I'll give them that, but a lot of it just feels so like on the nose, in your face Gen Z, and I never complain about that type of thing, but it just feels so how do you do fellow kids. It feels very try hard. Maybe I'm not the age demographic at this point anymore, but a lot of it just like flew right over my head. A lot of the times, like when I'm driving around, I found a lot of the dialogue actually really, really grating. Again, a couple of little bits here and there, but for the most part, I was like, I don't want to hear any of this, dude. But thankfully, again, the focus is all on the open world racing, and it's creative how it does it, right? It throws you in during the day. You could do races and jump in and stuff like that. But then at night, that's when there are bigger buy-ins for the races, but that's also just like where the better races are with more rewards and stuff like that. But you're worried about building heat, meaning how much cops will chase you, how quickly they'll identify you, and how hard they'll pursue you. So it's a really good balance of night and day street racing culture stuff we've seen from Need for Speed games, as well as police chase and heat stuff we've seen from Need for Speed games. It's just a good addictive combo. And that's what this game wants, because there's a lot to grind through, a lot to collect, a lot of ways to upgrade and change your cars. And yes, I still think it's a little bit grindy, and some people aren't going to like that. But I think if you like the racing enough and the environment enough, it's going to be for you. You're going to be able to dump a bunch of time into this. It also does have battle pass stuff and like EA stuff that I don't really like. I don't really care. I'd rather just progress and unlock and grind the old fashioned way instead of having this like fancy little XP battle pass thing in front of me. Whatever. That's like an old man gamer complaint. But I think long story short, base game, and otherwise a couple of glitches and technical problems I had on PC, and some cops spawning and appearing out of thin air right in front of me. Other than that, it still seems like a good game to play in 2024. Is it worth it? I said, yeah, if you get it on discount, or if you were like me, you didn't have time to get to it last year. It's a good Need for Speed game. If you're looking for something a little bit different flavor-wise, maybe you're all dried up with the Forza Horizon games, you want something a little bit more arcadey and accessible, but, a different flavor, this is totally it. Now, it is worth mentioning again, like I said, the more recent Volume 9 update. This brings a little Need for Speed goodies, like it's Need for Speed Most Wanted themed, which is cool, if not as big of a deal as I was expecting. It's also like the 30th anniversary of Need for Speed, which is crazy. So there's some new unlockables and stuff. And new to the game are the glamorous new vehicles. And I'm not being sarcastic here. The Honda Integra Type R and the classic Subaru Impreza WRX STI, which it just feels perfect for early 2000s Need for Speed throwbacks. They know what they're doing here. There are also motorcycles now, which I just want to be perfectly clear on. They are absolutely insane and awesome. They kind of ditch a lot of the feel, like of the stylized drifting racing, but what they make up for it with is a sense of blinding, like insane, exhilarating speed. Like really good aggressive sound effects and just really, really good handling and motion make you feel like you can like rip apart the entire map in just a few minutes. It's absolutely bananas, and I love driving these things. They almost feel like they kind of break the game a little bit because it's even easier to escape from the cops. Now, you're taking advantage of the bike and stuff in the biggest thing to come to Volume 9, arguably, it's Lockdown. Lockdown is a multiplayer mode designed to, keep you constantly racing and competing, and it's got a surprising amount of depth to it. It's like its own whole thing. It's kind of like an extraction shooter style game, but for racing, but also with like the closing circle of a battle royale. There's a lot to it, and it's actually kind of overwhelming at first. Essentially, you and other competing players are dropped onto the map and are free to drive around and engage in small activities to earn, and also crash into crates and stuff that have cash. Along with that, there are also these kind of like weapon pickups that you can crash into that you can engage to get a little bit of an advantage over the police or other players. Now, as you're doing all of this stuff, you're being guided by the voice of the kind of overseer to these, a guy named Racer X. Things will pop up on the map like lockups, which you can then race to earn more and jack a different ride. As you're doing all this stuff, everything is escalating. Heat is rising, so more and more cops are pursuing, and very quickly things can get really hairy. And along with that, more sections of the map are getting kind of zoned off by a wall of police EMP that'll mess you up. Also, while doing all this, you can jump into races and stuff. So essentially, you steal a car or like rack up a ton of cash, and then you wait for an extraction truck to appear on the map, all while trying to survive the escalating police presence and get more cash than other players. You find a truck that'll pop up on the map here and there. These extraction trucks, you will chase them down and then try and hold that extraction truck long enough to then unlock the extract option to get out of the mode. But then you unlock that rare car that you stole or all that earned cash. The game gives you a very, very busy map that you can, whip up at any point to see where things are, other players, extraction trucks, cash opportunities, vehicles to steal, stuff like that. And along with that, there are also contracts you can engage in to get more bonuses. Kind of like little things you can trigger before jumping into a match with specific targeted objectives to check off to then earn more. Like we've seen it before in a lot of games, but it is just another thing they're dumping on here. There are 4 of these contract sets for you to work through, so there is quite a bit here, including the blacklist ones. Those, of course, are the ones where you get the vehicles from the lockups to extract and keep them. Those are a big deal, and apparently, and I haven't done this yet, but according to EA and the developers, if you collect every blacklist contract, you unlock the original Need for Speed Most Wanted BMW M3 GTR. We all know it, from the cover. It's like a legendary car, so there you go. It is a crazy mode, and it is designed to keep you engaged like every fraction of a second while also just earning a bunch of stuff. It feels like manic or like low attention span with the amount of things happening at once. It is crazy, but it is also really fun. The whole time, this like Racer X guy is talking to you and telling you like what's up, like what's being updated and stuff like that. And he's really annoying. Just like the main game, I kind of just want all the voiceover, all that stuff to just stop. this guy is constantly chirping as you're playing, and that's probably my only big complaint for Lockdown. Otherwise, it's cool, and like I said, the amount of depth is pretty surprising. And I think even if it's not for everyone, I think a core player base, this is going to keep them playing for quite a bit. There's little things too, like I said, the bike, which when you get the bike, you're way faster, you feel like you have way more of an advantage, and also you can drive through those EMP zones quicker. There are like a lot of little things like that. There's a lot to wrap your head around. You can see from the gameplay here, it took me a while to really get the ropes of it, if I'm being honest, but it is a cool mode. That's really it though. We thought some of you guys were curious about this, and we were personally curious, so we jumped in to see what Volume 9 was really all about. It doesn't feel like this massive big overhaul of the entire game or an expansion, but the little added goodies are cool. And honestly, an excuse to jump into a Need for Speed game is always good. I just really, really like this series. And I'm going to continue to play Unbound now, because like I said, I didn't get to it last year. So that's really it. That's a quick before you buy. You know how this goes by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion. And now I want to hear yours down in the comments. What's your experience with Unbound? Did you jump in last year? Was the style change not really your cup of tea? Or have you been hardcore and you jumped into Volume 9 immediately? If that's the case, I'd love to know what you think of Lockdown and all that. It is the early days of it, so I'm curious to see how it does evolve and how it's supported, because a lot of this, of course, comes down to the developers and stuff. But yeah, man, let me know what you think of this. And if you like talking games with us every single day, that's all we're really doing here. Clicking the like button helps us out. Thank you. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.